This man was a billionaire. He had nothing but money. Major banks and famous entrepreneurs sought him out to beg for investments. Even when he fell ill, healthcare centers competed to treat him, even taking each other to court to win him over. While he calmly sipped his coffee, representatives from both sides argued their cases, making the judge dizzy and unsure how to rule. At that very moment, the billionaire coughed up blood, ending the trial prematurely. Everyone rushed to take the magnate to the hospital. His name was Tom. This hospital was also his property, but ironically, due to the current patient overload, even as the owner, Tom had to share a room with another patient named Jerry. In contrast to Tom, Jerry was a former Special Forces soldier. After being discharged, he became an ordinary man, working as a mechanic in a small town. Unfortunately, he fell ill and had to be hospitalized. Neither of them knew that this fateful encounter would draw them into the most memorable journey of their lives. Tom, despite being a notorious magnate, had no one by his side when he was sick. Besides his assistant who served him, the only thing he had was a billion-dollar gold-plated coffee machine. Meanwhile, his roommate, a common man, was always cared for by his family and loved ones. Tom had a brain tumor. As his condition seemed to worsen, he had to shave his head for surgery. Although he seemed displeased with his current appearance, he eventually had to sadly enter the operating room to prolong his life. After the surgery, Tom was wheeled out with a white bandage wrapped around his head. This was proof of the saying, "What's the use of so much money?" When he needed family by his side the most, there was no one. That night, Tom had a seizure. If it hadn't been for his friend Jerry, who knows what would have happened. The next morning, the attending doctor came to examine Tom with a very fake attitude. He only performed his duties out of obligation, without any affection for the patient. When Jerry asked about Tom's medical records, the doctor shamelessly said he would inform a colleague and then turned and left. Soon after, Tom was presented with a lavish meal of raw veal ham. To thank Jerry for his help the previous night, Tom invited him to share. However, Jerry refused. He even warned that eating raw food at this time was very dangerous. Indeed, Tom soon suffered the consequences. He vomited continuously all night. Two elderly patients from two different worlds of wealth and poverty. Yet during nights of fever, they could only rely on each other to keep watch. From then on, the two old friends grew closer. In their free time, they played cards to pass the time. Jerry didn't hesitate to show off pictures of his family. In reality, Tom wasn't without family either. He had been through 4 marriages, but his excessive devotion to making money had driven them away one by one. The next morning, while Tom was enjoying a baseball game on TV, the attending doctor came in with an announcement. "With a brain tumor, you only have 6 months left to live." Hearing this news, Tom froze, but then he appeared very calm. He casually kicked the doctor out because he was blocking his view of the movie. Just as the doctor was about to leave the room, the tycoon called him back and requested Jerry's medical records. Indeed, being friends with the wealthy had its advantages. Jerry seemed very excited, making notes of the plans he wanted to carry out after being discharged. But when the doctor brought the news, he knew that, like Tom, he only had a few more months to live. The bad news came so suddenly that Jerry couldn't control his emotions and tore up his plan sheet. Tom's assistant accidentally picked it up from the floor. Tom learned of his new old friend's wonderful idea and was very excited. He added his own goals to the list with a pen, then made an incredibly crazy proposal to Jerry, that they would both embark on a journey to conquer all their desires. These were probably the last things the two could do in this life. While Tom was rambling, Jerry's wife came to visit. Knowing that her husband didn't have long to live, she stubbornly called someone to transfer him to a better hospital. But Jerry, more than anyone, knew his own condition. He adamantly refused, which made his wife deeply disappointed, and she sadly left. Despite this, it didn't hinder the determination of these two men. Perhaps only when facing life and death does one understand how intense the desire to fulfill dreams can be. Thanks to Tom's wealth, Jerry experienced skydiving from a plane for the first time. At such a high altitude and strong winds, Jerry seemed bewildered, while Tom, on the other hand, appeared very confident. Finally, encouraged by Tom, Jerry and his instructor plunged down. Tom also wasted no time following right behind. This feeling thrilled them both. After a while of soaring through the air, the two old friends continued to the racetrack. Here, Tom paid out of his own pocket to rent 2 supercars, one for each of them. The two began to accelerate, shifting gears wildly, no different from top-tier racers. Since it was a borrowed car, Jerry comfortably cut off Tom's car. He even didn't hesitate to smash through the safety barrier to cross the finish line first. Afterward, they both boarded a private jet to their next destination. Still annoyed by the incident at the racetrack, Tom secretly went to a private room to fool around with a long-legged woman. After their tryst, Tom quietly returned to his seat, thinking Jerry was asleep, but little did he know his old friend had known all along. Their next destination was a coastal town where old men played pétanque like children. Tom took Jerry to the most luxurious restaurant, ordering only expensive dishes. This was also the first time Tom had brought anyone else here. Overwhelmed with emotion, he couldn't help but share his memories. It turned out he still had a daughter named Emily. Unfortunately, she married an abusive man. He couldn't bear to see his daughter suffer, so he personally had someone make the scoundrel disappear. Because of this, the father and daughter became estranged and stopped speaking to each other. Being a sentimental person, Jerry didn't hesitate to add "meet Tom's daughter" to the itinerary. But this made Tom unhappy. The two had a heated argument at the dinner table. Jerry suddenly stood up and left. Tom thought he had said too much and followed to apologize, but the truth was that the fluid bag on Jerry's body had fallen off, causing it to bleed. Fortunately, it was just a minor issue that didn't affect their journey. But before continuing their plans, Jerry needed a shower and change clothes first. So, Tom took Jerry to his villa in France. Coincidentally, Jerry's wife called at that moment. He was in the bathroom, so Tom conveniently answered the phone for him. As a wife, she asked Tom to take Jerry back to the hospital because she was a nurse and knew what was best for her husband. Tom couldn't decide on this matter, so he told Jerry. He didn't know that Jerry wasn't heartless towards his wife and children. Because life was too short, he wanted to go alone like this to spare his wife the sadness she would feel every time she visited him in the hospital. And so, the two continued their journey according to the list. The next destination was a vast desert. They rode in a cool car amidst wild animals. Tom wanted to try shooting birds, but he ended up falling before the bullet even left the gun. They sat on the highest peak of the pyramid, enjoying the utmost comfort. Tom thought that here he could cross off two things: sitting on the pyramid and witnessing the most majestic thing. But Jerry disagreed, because in his eyes, the Himalayas were the most majestic place. So, to fulfill his old friend's dream, they went to the foot of the Himalayas and would soon reach the legendary peak of Mount Everest. But unfortunately, they encountered an unprecedented snowstorm. Tom's assistant reported that given the current situation, they would have to wait until next spring to reach the summit. This might be normal for others, but for two people with only 6 months left to live, it was something very distant and an unfulfilled dream of their lives. Jerry sat thoughtfully in a luxurious restaurant in the city. Just then, a woman proactively approached him. She expressed great admiration for Jerry because he still had the courage to climb to the top of the mountain at his age. She even hinted that she had rented a room upstairs and wanted to invite him there for a private chat. The beauty's directness stunned Jerry, but that very moment prompted him to think about his family. He gently declined and then went straight back to his room to meet Tom. "Is this your trick?" After receiving Tom's wry smile, Jerry knew Tom deliberately did that to make him remember his wife. Indeed, Jerry immediately canceled all his plans and flew back to his home. However, he didn't go home right away, but purposely took Tom to another place to surprise him. Jerry thought this would make Tom very happy, but in reality, it was completely the opposite. Tom, upon seeing his daughter in the house, became furious. He yelled at Jerry, "I am a strategist. Even the mayor of the city asks for my opinion. On what grounds do you dare arrange my private affairs?" He lost his temper, tore up the paper, and left Jerry and the assistant. The two close old friends thus parted ways without any joy. Tom returned to his $1 million mansion. Although it was a luxurious place, the atmosphere was strangely lonely and cold. Even the coffee machine that had always been his companion malfunctioned. Tom stood alone, dazed by the window, unable to control his loneliness, and burst into tears. Meanwhile, Jerry had returned home. That night, his whole family had a peaceful, happy dinner. The couple's affection was also rekindled. The two went into the bedroom, preparing for romantic moments. His wife even happily went to the bathroom to prepare a surprise for him. But they didn't expect a mishap to occur when she came out in an alluring nightgown and didn't see Jerry anywhere. He had been struck down by the terrible disease, lying unconscious on the floor. The next morning, Tom went to the company meeting like a zombie. He was pondering whether he should go apologize to his old friend when his assistant came with news. After learning of Jerry's condition, he rushed to the hospital. But it seemed everything was too late when the doctor announced that Jerry's disease had metastasized to his brain. At this point, Jerry's head had been shaved in preparation for surgery. Seeing Tom appear, Jerry made an excuse about being thirsty to get his wife out of the room. He handed Tom a letter he had written himself. In the letter, Jerry wrote that Tom was a magnate who loved coffee, but it was made from animal droppings. The two looked at each other and burst into laughter. This was probably the last laugh they could share. Then, Jerry pulled out the itinerary and crossed off, "Laugh till you cry." It turned out that he had previously copied an identical version of the one Tom had torn up. Then he gave the piece of paper to Tom and told him to complete the remaining items alone. Finally, the moment came for Jerry to enter the operating room. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. He forever left this world to return to dust. On his way home, Tom decided to follow Jerry's advice and meet his daughter. After all, they were blood relatives, and it had been too long, so Emily was no longer angry with him. Even more surprisingly, he met his adorable granddaughter. The feeling of having family by his side made Tom tremble with happiness. He hugged and kissed his lovely granddaughter with boundless joy. So the wish to kiss the most beautiful woman was also fulfilled. At Jerry's funeral, Tom was asked to speak. He couldn't control his emotions as he recounted their journey together. And here, he also crossed off the wish to live the happiest days. For both of them, the 3 months they spent together, originally strangers, were indeed the happiest time. So finally, there was only one wish left, but unfortunately, Tom no longer had time to do this. A few months after Tom passed away, his assistant climbed Mount Everest alone. He opened the mysterious tomb and placed the 2 urns of Tom and Jerry inside. Finally, he personally crossed out the line, witnessing the miracle. This was also considered the fulfillment of Tom and Jerry's last wish. The assistant placed the paper with the urns, hoping that somewhere Tom and Jerry could meet again in a new form. Life is impermanent. No matter how talented you are, you cannot predict the future. Therefore, whether you are rich or poor, in the end, the most important thing is how you live and the memories you create. Tom and Jerry were both diagnosed with cancer and had only a short time to live. They decided to fulfill the dreams they had never done in their lives together. Through this journey, they found the true meaning of life, love, family, and found their final resting place on Mount Everest. Thus, the true value of life lies not in wealth or power, but in the precious moments and relationships we build. The movie ends here. See you in the next episodes.